Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, and all throughout January, we've been looking back at some of our favorite things from the previous year, but now it's time for our month-long retrospective to come to an end, meaning that today we're going to take our final look back at the year that was 2019. Oh yeah, I forgot about the waking nightmare terror that is reality. Oh well, at least 2020 is going to be better. And yes, I have been too busy making these videos all month long to pay attention to what's been going on in the news. Why do you ask? Okay, so things in the world might be kind of rough, to put it lightly. But you know what actually is really good right now? Comic books. I see so many people on YouTube who basically dedicate their entire channels to nothing but complaining about comic books, and every single year when we come together to do our top 100 comics of the year list, I just have to sit there and wonder, why? How can you not find the good that is in comics out there? There's so many amazing books out there, and every single year when I put together our best of the year list, I'm constantly blown away. And this was another year where when I got to number 100, I was actually mad. Because numbers 101 through 126, or however many contestants I had, were also really good and made me really upset that I couldn't include them on there. I remember when I started doing the top 100 comics of the year list, I would look at number 100 and go, yeah, I guess it's okay. I guess it's good enough that I can include in this list. I didn't really get time to read anything else, but ever since I've been dedicating more time to actually reading books, oh my goodness, I keep thinking about bumping this up to like a top 150, and I could probably do it. We're not going to, but I'm just saying there's that many good books out there every single year. However, before we jump into our list today and cover numbers 100 through 51, there are a couple of ground rules that we have to get out of the way. Now, just go ahead and let everyone know, these are the exact same ground rules that we have every single year. So if you've been with us in the years before, you already know what's coming up, and you can go ahead and skip to this time right here. You can also jump to that time right here if you don't care about the ground rules and you just want to start hearing me talk about comics. That's also acceptable. And gone. But for everybody else out there who wants to know what qualifies for this list, let's begin. Ground rule number 1, if you are a regular monthly comic, you have to have had at least 2 issues of your book come out in 2019. I do this because we've all read those series that had a really great first issue, but then everything after that kind of just fell apart. So I didn't want to come in here and celebrate a book that came out in December with 1 issue and you go, oh man, this has got a lot of promise behind it. And then the next year it kind of just crumbles and falls away. And because of that, just 1 issue of it wound up on our best of the year list. Also, because of the way that I judge books, there's really no point in having a series that only had 1 issue come out get onto our list. I say that because I don't judge 1 issue of a book versus 1 issue of another book. I judge everything that came out in 1 year from 1 series versus everything that came out in that year from another series. Meaning that if you only had 2 issues of a book come out in 1 year, it's going to be really hard for you to compete against a series that had 12 issues come out that year. Now, I know that seems unfair to the books out there that didn't have many issues come out in 2019, but speaking honestly, I've been doing this for a while. There is no way to make this list not feel unfair. There's always going to be something in the way that I rank these books that feels like it's biased towards one type of book versus another type of book, and this is honestly just the best option that we have. Ground rule number 2, original graphic novels do count. Now I do want to specify original graphic novels. If you are a regular trade paperback that just collects all the issues of a regular series that came out in a previous year, but the trade paperback came out in 2019, I'm not counting that as a new book that came out in 2019 because the source material for that did come out in 2018 or a previous year. But if you are an original graphic novel that only exists in that big, thick trade paperback format, that does count. Ground rule number 3, digital comics do count. If you have a comic that was released only digitally, it did not get any kind of a physical release, however, it was still sold in some kind of a digital marketplace such as Comixology, then that does still count. However, this is when it gets complicated. There is a difference between digital comics and web comics. Digital comics are still arranged in some kind of a book. Web comics tend to be just strips, and while I think web comics are amazing, they don't count. Because if I started to include web comics, that would double or even triple the number of comics that I would have to read for this list, But also, as I said, with digital comics, they tend to be sold on some sort of a digital marketplace. With webcomics, they're just kind of all over the place out there in the wild, and there could be an amazing webcomic out there that only about 5 people are talking about, and I would have to hunt that thing down in some website that's in behind another website, that's in behind another website, that's in behind a paywall. Yeah, it would just get too complicated to hunt down webcomics. However, I do have a compromise. Ground rule number 4, if your webcomic got a physical release in 2019, then it does count for this list. Yes, even if your webcomic was put out in 2018, 2017, or any year before that, if it never received a physical release until this year, then I will count the stuff that was in that physical release for this list. That's a lot of explaining when I only have one nominee on this list that actually counts for that. Next up, speaking of other things that don't count, manga doesn't count. And I want to come in here and clarify the same way that I do every year. I'm not making this rule because I hate manga. No, far from it. If you guys have watched this channel, you know I am a big fan of manga. However, just like with webcomics, if I started including manga, it would double the number of things I need to read. But when it comes to manga, there is that question of, okay, what counts? Do I only count the stuff that got physical releases in America this year? Do I count the stuff that the companies put up digitally on their websites this year, even though the physical releases will come out later? Do I count the stuff that comes out in Japan but doesn't get any kind of official release in America, but I can find a way to read it online with a translation? Because that's still a thing out there. Do I count that? Yeah, it's just way too complicated. There's way too many questions that get raised with what does and does not count with manga. And the last ground rule, although this one isn't really a ground rule, it's more of a clarification. What exactly is this list? Is this the list of my favorite books of the year? Or is it the list of the quote-unquote best books of the year? I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to be wondering, well, what exactly is the difference between those two? Favorite books of the year is exactly that. It's my personal favorite books. We all have our own personal opinions. We can't separate ourselves from them, which means that some books are going to affect me in a way that won't affect you. There are going to be some books out there that are the exact thing that I like in a book, and those will be my favorite books of the year. But I do have to step back from that and judge it objectively and go, okay, but is it actually that good, or is it just the thing that I like? Same goes for the books out there that I don't really like. I have to look at them and go, well, do I not like it because it's bad, or do I not like it because I'm not the target audience for it? Because it's not the stuff that I enjoy in books, but could be the stuff that other people enjoy in books. What is the target audience for this book? How well does it work for that target audience? Let me see what people say they like about this book, and let me try and understand that. That's what I mean when I say the best books of the year, trying to remove all my personal bias from the equation. And that's what I try and do in these lists. However, speaking honestly, there is no way to remove all of your personal bias from doing one of these lists. So I try to make this the best books of the year list, but there is going to be that dash of personal favorite opinions thrown in there. I kind of started to run out of steam there at the end of that one, but we're keeping this take. But there you have it, folks. All the ground rules are out of the way. We can go ahead and start the list now. But before we get into it, I just want to give one big special thank you to everybody who has been supporting this channel all year long. And a special thank you to all the patrons out there. We had to read a lot of books for this list, and that costs a lot of money because I don't believe in pirating books. So the patrons who donate to this channel every single month, you guys helped a lot with that. And if you do want to join our Patreon account, every single month I create a special video just for the patrons. And in January, the special video, it was me actually putting this list together. We went through the first 50 nominees and I kind of ranked them, and I talked about why I was ranking one over the other. So you get a little bit of a behind the scenes look at that. One of my New Year's resolutions is to try and promote myself better and promote the Patreon a little bit more. So I can check that off now. Anyway, behold! Number 100, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Over the past couple years, the Archie comics have been trying to figure out what to do with Sabrina. She seemed like a great fit for their horror comics, but there's also that audience out there that wants the more fun, lighthearted Sabrina adventures. This year, Kelly Thompson took over the title and seemed to find that absolute perfect balance between the two, delving into darker mysteries, but still kind of feeling like a fun adventure at the same time. Number 99, Waves. This is the tragic story of a mother losing their child to a miscarriage and slowly over the course of years picking herself back up and learning to live again. This was a very deep and personal story for the author, and you can absolutely feel that on the page, but what really gets into the top 100 was the book's gorgeous use of colors. After the miscarriage, all colors disappear from the page, but as time goes along, as she slowly starts to heal, as she begins to feel again, you start to see those colors return to the page, and it all serves as a great metaphor for what she's going through. Number 98, Fantastic Four. Dan Slott continued his run on this series this year, and the best thing that I can say about the book is, this really feels like the Fantastic Four. For that audience out there that had been waiting for this series to return, it feels like Dan Slott is absolutely gathering together everything that makes this book work, and he knows what to do with it. We had a great Doctor Doom story this year, followed up immediately afterwards by a great Thing and the Hulk storyline. It feels almost like Dan Slott has a checklist of everything that should be in a Fantastic Four book, and he's just going down that list, marking them all off. Number 97, Griffin Galaxy's Most Wanted. This is the follow-up series from the team that brought us Heavenly Blues, one of my favorite books of the last decade. And I have to say, even though I had a ton of expectations for this book, it didn't disappoint. However, this is a completely different type of book from Heavenly Blues. This is an off-the-wall, wacky comedy. It's the story of a galaxy that is being overrun by a tyrannical government, and one of the bravest soldiers for that government gets sent to the edge of the galaxy, then returns, and she has completely lost her mind. She has now turned into a walking chaos engine who has been recruited by a group of rebels to help them tear down this tyrannical government. If you are a fan of books like Deadpool or other completely off-the-wall crazy comedies, you need to check out Griffin Galaxy's Most Wanted. The only reason this book is not higher is, I do have to admit, I found a couple of glaring grammatical errors throughout the book, and as bad as my grammar is, if I can find errors in it, then yeah, I kind of do have to take a few marks off. But this book overall is still fantastic. And did I mention every single issue is only 99 cents? Number 96, Shazam. Jeff Johns had been teasing us with a brand new Shazam book forever. It feels like we've been waiting for almost the majority of the last decade for this book to come out, and this was the year when it finally happened. And again, didn't disappoint. Jeff Johns really captured that feeling of heart and that feeling of family that a Shazam book should have, but he also loaded in so much imagination, but it's an imagination that feels unique to Shazam. I feel like if you are one of those people who have been sitting around waiting for this book to finally return, this will not disappoint. Next up at number 95, Invisible Kingdom. This is a hard book to talk about because it's one of those series where there's so many things going on and so many mysteries, but so imaginative that I feel like I don't want to spoil anything, but it also feels like I could describe everything that's happening in the book and it still wouldn't spoil it for you because you need to check it out for yourself. But essentially, this is a futuristic sci-fi alien world where there is this big religion that someone has made a long pilgrimage to join, only for them to find out that this establishment has a deep, dark secret. And now they really have to question what their role in life should be now that they know this information, but it's involving something they've dedicated their life to. Number 94, Naomi. This year, Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walkers introduced us to the brand new character of Naomi, who feels like she is a great new character to be introduced to young readers. It's a story all about this girl growing up in a town where she feels like she's different. She feels like there's something unique about her, like there's something about her that stands out, like she doesn't fit in, and that there has to be something else out there. And honestly, I feel like that's something that a lot of kids go through, and I think that this book was able to capture that very well. I wish the book had gone on for a little bit longer, but this is definitely a character who feels like they have staying power, a character that feels like they can continue to appear in other series from here on out, and one day another writer could easily pick them back up and carry that torch, because this is a new iconic character that has been created. And so rare that we can look at Marvel or DC and say there is a brand new character like that. Number 93, Savage Sword of Conan. So far, there appears to be a theme in the number 90s on this list of books that people were either hesitant about or waiting to return, and then those books finally came, and they were just really good versions of those books. And Savage Sword of Conan was another series like that, because this was the year that Marvel finally got the license to Conan back, and a lot of people looked at this and said, oh yeah, Marvel, they're not going to get as extreme and gruesome as some of the other Conan books out there. They're not going to be as adult-focused as some of the other Conan books. Does Marvel really understand Conan? And then Marvel proceeded to put writers on these books who understood Conan. This year, Jerry Dugan and Jim Zub both came together and presented great Conan the Barbarian stories that matched the tone of this character and let readers know, hey, even if he did pick up and move over to Marvel, he's still in good hands. Number 92, Harley Quinn. I will go ahead and admit something to you guys. I know everybody out there absolutely loved the Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti Harley Quinn series. I actually didn't. I kind of really hated that book. I don't want to come in here on our top 100 best of the year list and start talking about books that I didn't like, but I feel I do need to give you guys the setup for this, because when Sam Humphries came on board that book, a lot of people looked at him and went, oh, how are you going to be able to top what they did? You're not going to be able to live up to what they did. Whereas I looked at him and went, okay, let me see what you can do with this character. And honestly, I think he's nailing it. I think he's providing us with that perfect balance between the wacky, off-the-wall sense of humor that Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti created, but at the same time, he loads this book up with so much heart. This book feels like it knows when to laugh and when to get deep. I mean, heck, this year they had a tie-in issue to the big DC Year of the Villain event, and not only is it one of the best tie-in issues of anything I've ever read, it also contains a more emotional ending than almost any issue of anything I've read all year. Number 91, Meet the Skrulls. This might be the oddest contender on this entire list, because when I heard that Marvel was going to be putting out a book starring a family of Skrulls, and it was essentially going to be a story about a family of espionage agents infiltrating an enemy country, kind of similar to The Americans over on FX or other stories about Russian spies infiltrating America, yeah, I didn't know how this was going to work, but the answer was really darn well. The family dynamic in this book plays into the metaphor that it's trying to create exactly the way that it should, but at the same time, it also feels very unique to Skrulls. It feels like they capture that perfect balance between out-of-this-world science fiction imagination and down-to-earth realistic metaphors. Number 90, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. It's kind of sad to see this book goes. It has been on our top 100 books of the year list every single year since it's been out, but I really do have to respect that this series knew exactly when to pick up and when to leave, when they had told all the stories that they wanted to tell, and they came in here and they delivered a really great finale that tied back so many elements of this series' entire run, and at the same time gave us a really emotional moment to go out on. I mean, heck, this final issue actually had a moment that wound up on our best moments of the year list. And because this series was able to be so imaginative for so long and always knew just how to balance heart and humor, yeah, we have to salute it one last time and put it on this list. Number 89, Wonder Twins. When I heard that DC was bringing back the Wonder Twins, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it would be in good hands because it was being passed off to the same people behind Prez, the Flintstones, Snagglepuss. I know if you have not been keeping up with those books, that might not exactly sound like it's in the best hands, but Mark Russell has proven time and time again he knows how to take these really crazy, zany characters and make them just big, giant, walking messages about modern-day life. And that's exactly what he did with the Wonder Twins. He took these characters and realized, hey, they're aliens. They're here on planet Earth for the very first time. Let's talk about all the things wrong on Earth that they might raise questions about. And so these two heroes in training end up looking at all the problems of the world and basically asking, yeah, what exactly is the right thing to do? And how do you go up against so many overwhelming problems? And are we actually making things worse when we try to help? These are some really big questions that not a lot of superhero books have the guts to ask. And they're being asked in Wonder Twins. Number 88, Avengers. Listen, I know that this book has its critics, and I understand why. I'm not going to come in here and pretend like everything this book has done has been great, but I'm also not going to pretend like this book hasn't done great things. All throughout this year, there have been several high points throughout this book. When this book started the year off by having a big war between the Avengers and vampires, I thought, oh god, I think this book has already jumped the shark. Nope, turns out it was one of the best storylines of the entire year from this team. And every single time that this book cuts back to the prehistoric Avengers, it's a treat. They're some of my favorite issues of this entire run. I look forward to it every single time it happens. And Jason Aaron is doing on this book one of the many things that Jason Aaron does best: setting up dominoes. This entire series is just Jason Aaron going, here's another thing that's going to happen. Here's another thing that's going to happen. Here's another thing that's going to happen. And every single time he does that, I just look at it and go, I cannot wait for that thing to happen. Every single thing he is setting up in this book sounds so exciting to me and makes me happy to read this book. Number 87, Spencer and Locke 2. Last year when Spencer and Locke came out, and it was the story of what would happen if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in one of the most crime-ridden cities on Earth and ended up becoming police detectives. A lot of people looked at that and went, how on earth is this going to work? And the answer was, really well. That was an amazing series that got a lot of people's attention. So that raised questions about what exactly are you going to do in Volume 2 of this? You kind of used all the Calvin and Hobbes characters in Volume 1. So this year, they decided to expand into all the other comic strips out there, and they created one of our favorite villains of the year in Roach Riley, the evil, dark, gritty version of Beetle Bailey. Again, I know none of this sounds like it should work, but because this writer knows how to get really deep with these characters, knows how to take all the imagery from the comic strips that you grew up with, and knows exactly how to twist them to make a really deep, disturbing look at these detectives, it becomes a series that proves, no matter how insane the concept might sound, this writer knows what he's doing. Number 86, Skyward. Speaking of imaginative titles, this series caught our attention last year when it told the story of a world where gravity just stopped existing. And it constantly blew our minds with how well they thought every single bit of this out. But this was the year in which they came in here and they started to reveal, oh, there's a much deeper story going on here. There's a whole lot of factions forming. There are so many different players involved in all this. This was the year that Skyward proved it's not just a special book because it's imaginative and it's got premise that no one has ever thought of. It's a special book because it's just really well made. Number 85, Far Sector. DC has been kind of interesting over the past couple of years because they've kind of adapted this technique of not really caring about continuity, not really caring about introducing anything. If a writer comes in here and says, I want to write a book about X, they're gonna let that writer write that book about X. And books like Far Sector show how that can work, because this is the story of a brand new Green Lantern in a completely different world, not really tied to anything, but that's one of the magical things about it. If you want to pick up a really good Green Lantern book, and you don't want to be bogged down in all that history, Far Sector is the book for you. This is a Green Lantern police procedural book that is all about a Green Lantern having to investigate a case on a foreign planet where there hasn't been a crime in decades. This planet has been at peace for so long that the Green Lantern literally has to teach them how to investigate a crime scene. And now she has to get to the bottom of this case before this peace that this planet has been living with for so long just cracks and dissolves beneath her and the entire planet goes to war again. I love the art style in this book, I love the premise, and I really like the new Green Lantern. You can tell that she's actually got a really deep backstory to her. The only reason why this book isn't any higher is because, as I said, I do have to judge every issue of something that came out in a year versus every issue of everything else that came out in that year, and Far Sector only had 2 issues come out. However, I feel pretty confident in saying if this book continues to put out more issues next year and they all remain around the same quality, yeah, it'll probably be even higher next year on the list. Number 84, Coffin Bound. Where do I even begin on this book? Listen, sometimes you just want to read a book because it's weird. And Coffin Bound is the book for you. This book almost feels like if the writer of Dune teamed up with Quentin Tarantino. It's a series about a woman who is being hunted down by a murderer, so to escape, she decides she's going to go back through every place she has ever been to in her life and essentially just scrub her entire existence. Just make sure that there is no trace of her left. But what makes the book so unique is that it almost feels like it's set in a world where life and death are just the exact same thing. This is a book where her traveling companion is a vulture that is inside of a diving suit, and the helmet of that diving suit is just a birdcage with a vulture skeleton inside, and it just appears one day and says, yeah, I'm just here because you're about to die, and I just follow around dead things. And everybody accepts that as if that's just a thing. And that's how the book starts, and it just continues to get weirder from there. If anything that I have described sounds like something you might enjoy, then just go and check out Coffin Bound, because there's no other words that I can use on this to possibly sum up what it feels like to read this book. Number 83, Paper Girls. This is another series that has been on this list every single year, and this is the year that it came to an end, and it had such a fascinating ending, because it feels like as you had been reading this book, you had kind of been waiting for the big kaboom. You had been waiting for everything to just hit a peak, and this year, it did do that, but it didn't really feel important, because it felt like the important thing was whether or not these girls remain friends. And as you read it, you realize, oh, yeah, that actually was the more important thing. So I really do have to applaud the way that this book ended, because the way that it goes out is not with something big, but rather with something small and personal. And I feel like that was the much more important path to take. Number 82, The Plot. This has been one of the unspoken champions of horror comics for 2019, because I feel like everyone who's read this book absolutely loves it, but I feel like not nearly enough people have read it. On the surface, it feels like your standard curse book or haunted house book, but the family dynamics of this book are blended so well with the setting and the grungier tone and the feeling that this book takes on. Yeah, that's the other thing that I have to say about this book. This book feels like after you finish reading it, if you put the book down, you would just have moss growing on your hands. Like, it feels like something is growing on you as you read this book. It's able to just capture that creeping feeling that a really good horror book absolutely should have. And the art style and the way that they're able to depict all the locations in this book really helps to sell that. Number 81, Middle West. This is another one of those books that's just really creative in the way that it just blends so many different tones and aesthetics that you really never know what to expect from the book next, while at the same time it remains down to earth. It always feels so realistic, because this is a series all about a young boy who has an abusive father, and he just wants to get away from that father. But even though they're living in a trailer park and all the places they visit feel like they could be any town USA, there's also magic in the world. It almost feels like if this small Midwestern town existed right on the border of Oz. And it's because this book knows how to be personal, but also fantastical at the same time, that I absolutely believe it deserves a spot on this list. Number 80, Detective Comics. This is one of those books where I can't really point at anything specifically and go, that's what makes it special. It's just a really well-made series. The Arkham Knight storyline from Peter J. Tomasi provided us with a great new threat to the Caped Crusader, and after that, Tomasi went on to write a really solid Mr. Freeze storyline for the big Year of the Villain event, but after he left, Tom Taylor came on board. And hey, what can I say about Tom Taylor that we haven't already praised every single year on the Best of the Year list? The guy's just a really talented writer, and he continued to show that in these Detective Comic issues. Number 79, Marauders. A lot of brand new X-Men series came out of the big House of X and Power of X storyline, and I have to say, I don't think there's any other book from Marvel or DC at the moment that feels quite like the Marauders. It's about a certain cut-off group of the X-Men forming a band of pirates together and going across the seas in order to try and help out mutants in need. And it feels like a book about pirates, but it also feels like an X-Men book. I don't know how they're able to balance those two things, but it might have something to do with the fact that this is being written by Jerry Dugan, and that guy knows team dynamics. And that's one of the special things about this book. This is such a bizarre mishmash of characters, and yet he finds a way to make them work, and finds a way to make me enjoy reading about them. Number 78, Wicked and Divine. Yet another book that came to an end this year that's been on the Best of the Year list almost every single year. Wow, I'm just now realizing next year is going to feel very odd with all these titles missing. Looking to Divine is a book that has always been for the fans. It is a book that knew exactly what it wanted to be, it knew exactly what its audience was, and this year with the finale, I feel like it gave that audience everything it could have wanted. It had the big blowout moment there at the end, where you got to see some of your favorite characters come back, and then it gave us the epilogue that just showed us what all these characters were doing so many years down the road, and I really have to appreciate that. I will admit I have not been the biggest fan of Wicked and Divine simply because it is not a book aimed at me, it is not my type of book, and that is absolutely 100% okay. But when I got to that epilogue issue, it really kind of hit me. Wow, I've gone on a journey with these characters, and it actually did make an impact on me. Number 77, Justice League Dark. I believe I mentioned this last year and pretty much every single time that I've ever talked about the Justice League Dark. But I still can't believe that there is a Justice League team out there dedicated to investigating the dark and the spooky and the creepy and the kooky. It feels like the Justice League, especially a Justice League that has Wonder Woman, one of the brightest shining superheroes of our times, on its roster, shouldn't be in a horror comic. And yet James Tynion IV, one of the most talented horror comic writers of this generation, continues to show me why they are the perfect fit for this. He continues to come in here and prove why this is a book that absolutely needs to exist. The way that he blends superheroics with classic horror-themed tropes is perfect. There was an issue at the very beginning of this year that was just a horror anthology salute. It was all just a big tribute to those old Tales from the Crypt or other horror anthology series where Man-Bat just comes in here and explains to the audience a couple of the cases that the Justice League Dark has been on. And it's all just meant to be spooky ghost stories or tales of monsters. And they're legitimately creepy. And it absolutely works for what they're going for. And I can't believe this book is able to pull stuff like that off. But also, James Tynion knows how to set stuff up. He knows how to come in here and say, all right, this is what we're doing now, but this is just the start of what we're going to do. And it's going to get worse and worse, and the stakes are going to rise higher and higher, and I just introduced a new character, and they're going to screw so many things up. And you know all those issues that this character is dealing with? You know that's going to be a problem later on. Every single time that I read an issue of this book, I already want to read the next issue. Number 76, Avant Gardes. Are you a fan of crazy 80s sports comedies? I am. Are you also a fan of witty, quirky indie comics? I am. So if you're like me, you're probably going to really like the Avant Gardes. This is a book all about a young woman who she just started going off to college, and she used to be part of a basketball team, but something happened and now she doesn't want anything to do with that sport anymore. So she decides to go to an art school, something completely split off from any sports team she could find, only to get there and discover, oh, they actually are trying to put together a sports team, and they really need her to sign up because she's so good at the game. As I said, this feels like one big salute to all those crazy, zany 80s sports comedies, because every single member of this team just feels like such a dynamic character and the exact opposite type of character you would expect to find in a sports book. And that is what makes seeing this team come together so unique. And I absolutely loved it. I wish the book had kept going on. In fact, I wish that they had kept adding on more characters to this book because every single one of them felt like a great addition to the team. Number 75, Going to the Chapel. This is the story about a young bride who on her wedding day is having second thoughts, only for her wedding to be crashed by a gang of outlaws who are there to rob the place, and one thing leads to another and revelations are made, and honestly, if you just want a good heist comedy, this is a perfect book for you. This almost feels like if Ocean's 11 was made by the people who made Arrested Development. It is such a unique comedic series and unlike anything else that's on the stands right now. Number 74, Murder Falcon. Murder Falcon started up in 2018, and I checked out the first issue, and I thought, you know what, this seems pretty good. This is a story about this guy who used to be a musician, but then something happened to him, and now he doesn't want to play anymore. But then his world starts getting invaded by monsters, And it turns out there's another race of people out there who are made to fight the monsters, but they need to be powered by rock and roll. And now it's up to him and his new partner, Murder Falcon, to go in there and save the day. He has to learn to embrace rock again if he is going to save the day. And yeah, that was something special. And as this series has gone on, and as I have read more of it, I went, you know what? It's not just special because of the idea, it's special because of the heart. When you see that this is basically just going to be a big salute to heavy metal, you're like, okay, it's going to be a bunch of explosions, a bunch of punching in there. And yes, there is indeed a lot of explosion and punching. But there is so much heart. There is so much depth to these characters. Every single time that they really went into details about what happened to these characters and about their backstories. And characters actually sat down and talked about what happened to them. I was impressed. That's the stuff that I really fell in love with on this series. Although the rock and roll and the explosions are nice. I think I said this last year when we talked about this book, but if this gets turned into a movie and you don't get Jack Black to either be the rock star or Murder Falcon, you're doing this wrong. Number 73, X-Force. When the X-Men split off from the rest of the world and develop their own nation, they need a CIA, they need an FBI, they need some kind of an organization that is there to solve the really big crimes that are being committed against mutant kind. So X-Force is there for that purpose. And when I heard this premise, I thought, okay, it sounds like unlike the previous X-Force books, there's going to be a little bit less action and a little bit more, I don't want to say paperwork, but it definitely sounds like he's going to be talking a little bit more about the ins and outs of how an organization like this could be run. And yes, there is a little bit more of that, but just enough to give it a sense of reality, to make these characters feel like they're real, so that when they're getting into big, deep situations, you're actually concerned for them. And that's the biggest thing that I have to applaud about this book. In House of X and Power of X, they came in here and said, yeah, mutants have conquered death. We found a way to make it that mutants wouldn't die anymore. So I thought to myself, oh, well that sounds cool, but how are you going to make these stories really tense when I don't have to worry about anything happening to the characters? Wow, this book is tense. This book has you constantly wondering what is going to happen next. I mean, at the end of the first issue, they came in here and did something that made me go, well, I have to read the second issue because I have to know what happens now. And yeah, what proceeds to happen from there doesn't disappoint. Number 72, The Man Who Came Down the Attic Stairs. This is a horror book all about being a new mother. This woman gives birth to her first child, and it's driving her insane. She can't take the screaming anymore. She can't take being kept awake all the time. She doesn't trust her husband anymore, and she feels like something is in the house with her. Now, you don't have to be a psychologist in order to look at this thing and tell that it's all meant to be a giant metaphor for postpartum depression, but that's actually what makes this book so special. They made a horror book that's all about postpartum depression. I've never heard of this before. I've never seen anyone even attempt that. And the fact that they didn't just attempt it, but they actually successfully pulled it off, they actually handled this with the correct level of tact that you should take with a big serious issue like this, makes this book really impressive. Number 71, Harleen. We've all heard the story of how Dr. Harleen Quinzel ended up becoming the Joker's girlfriend of Harley Quinn, but we've never really gotten a story that went as deep and personal with it as Harleen. I actually love seeing Dr. Quinzel struggle to be taken seriously as a doctor. I love seeing her actually making so many compromises and working so hard just to get someone to accept her study and to allow her to do her research. It makes her feel like a three-dimensional character in a way that few other books have really been able to capture. And of course, we have to mention the artwork. Stepan Sejic is one of the best artists working in the industry today, but he so rarely actually does a full issue of anything, so seeing him dedicate himself to this series has been an absolute delight. Number 70, Girl in the Bay. This series is about a young girl living in New York in the 1960s, and one night she is murdered, only to wake up in the modern day. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into any of the details of this book, but I will just say it raises so many questions about how any of this is happening, And I kept reading the book because I really wanted to know the answer to these questions. But what made the book so special and what gets it so high on this list is that this book really is meant to be just an exploration by this writer about what it feels like to be stuck in a time period and then look around and feel like so much has passed you by. To feel like you're overwhelmed by the modern world when you're such an old soul who still romanticizes the stuff from back in your times, but you can't go back to it. You're stuck in this day and age. It's what it's like to feel young, but you just don't understand anything anymore. And the way that they approach that in this series is unique in a way that I've never seen in any other book that attempts to approach this issue. Number 69, The Magnificent Miss Marvel. When G. Willow Wilson left Miss Marvel after having not only created that character but stuck on the book throughout its entire run, a lot of people were really concerned. I mean, this is the best writer that we've ever had on this book because no one else has ever been allowed to write this book. How are we going to find someone who's going to live up to that expectations? Who wants to be the first person who hops on a book after the person who has been writing the book the entire time leaves? Well, luckily, Saladin Ahmed stepped up to the plate, and I've been happy to say so far he has been knocking it out of the park. He not only still captures the youthful imagination of this series and the energy that was so important to making a character like Kamala Khan so likable, he has also added his own experience as a father into this book, because I feel like while back in G. Willow Wilson's book, it focused so much more on Kamala, which was important, she was the titular character after all. The very first storyline of this book focuses on the parents. And I feel like that really expands Kamala's family, which was another very important element to that series. Saladin Ahmed came in here and he proved that not only does he understand Miss Marvel, he can also still add on to Miss Marvel. This is a character who is not bound to one writer. She's a character who can expand and grow, and I don't just mean because she has stretching powers. Sorry, I didn't write that into the script. I just realized what I was doing as I was saying that, and I had to comment on. You know what, I actually had more to say about this book, but I'm not going to get a better out than that joke. So, number 68, Daredevil. Chip Zdarsky seemed like such an interesting pick for this book because so many people know Chip Zdarsky as being a humorous writer, and Daredevil is known for being a very dark, serious character. But there are also times when he can be humorous. And I feel like that's kind of what's made Chip Zdarsky's run so far so memorable on this book, is that some people define their run on Daredevil by being really dark and serious, but other people try to be lighthearted. In other words, Daredevil is a character who has had so many different sides to himself, and I feel like most writers come in here and pick the side that they want to talk about, but with Chip Zdarsky's run, I feel like he's trying to capture every side of Daredevil. And so far, when it comes to the tone of this book, I think he's doing a really good job with that, but I think the main thing that makes his run on this book so special is what he's doing for all the other characters in the book. I have loved watching his depiction of Wilson Fisk as he attempts to go straight and be the legitimate mayor of New York City when we all know that's not going to work out. And there have been so many great moments with Wilson Fisk, I'd even say he's had better moments in this series than Daredevil has. Number 67, Joker Killer Smile. Jeff Lemire, the writer of one of the best horror comics out there right now, came on to a Joker series this year and attempted to give that character his own fresh spin, and he decided to interpret the Joker, surprise, surprise, as a horror character. And it absolutely works. This series almost feels like if you combine the Joker with the Babadook, as we follow someone who is trying to study the Joker, but the more he studies the Joker, the more it feels like something is following him. Something paranormal is chasing him down. There's always something right behind him as he's trying to investigate and learn more about the Joker. And he has to ask himself, do I dare look into this anymore, or do I get out now? What's the correct decision here? Because his life is being turned completely upside down. I know that Jeff Lemire isn't the first writer to try and turn the Joker into a horror-themed character, but with this series, he's definitely doing one of the best jobs we've ever gotten. Number 66, Once and Future. This is one of the most unique ideas for a book I have ever seen. This is the story of King Arthur returning back from the dead, only for the protagonist of the book to remind us, yeah, King Arthur was kind of an a-hole. Like, if you ever actually looked at, like, any of the historical references for the stuff he was doing, he's kind of a guy who believed that England should overtake everyone, and he was very prejudiced against anybody who wasn't, like him. So now we have zombie King Arthur returning and recruiting a whole new army of superpowered and mercenary roundtable knights. And it's up to this old woman who is the last member of her team who dedicated her life to stopping this from happening, and her grandson who doesn't know anything about any of this to prevent it. This is an incredibly smart book. It's so imaginative, has wonderful characters, amazing art, and also, you don't have to be a political scientist to be able to look at this book and go, oh, I see all the metaphors it's trying to bring up with what's going on over in England right now, which also makes this feel like a very important book. Number 65, The Terrifics. The Terrifics is one of those books that I only read once a year when it's time to prepare for the best of the year list, and every single time that I pick this series up, I think to myself, why am I not reading this more often? This book is magical. This book is so imaginative, and yes, it is a book that was meant to be a complete ripoff of the Fantastic Four, but in the time it's been around, it has absolutely morphed into its own thing. I love seeing the dynamics between all the characters on this team. I love the sense of humor that it has, but most importantly, the imagination and the sense of exploration behind this series is so perfect for what it's going for. Number 64, Venom. In 2018, Donny Cates started his run on Venom with a storyline that got everyone talking and made us all instantly realize this was going to be something special. And in the next year, he continued to prove, yeah, it was going to be something special. He has so many plans in store for this series, and it's shocking to me how every single time I feel like they have revealed as much as they could possibly reveal, or the stakes have risen as much as they could possibly raise, Donny Cates reveals he has 2, 3, 4, 5 more years worth of stories to tell with this character, and it absolutely feels like he could do that. It feels like he's got that much material. It's kind of like the first time that you started reading Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, when you realize, oh, they have just created a much larger world, and I cannot wait to see how much they're going to explore it. Also, the relationship between Eddie Brock and his son is the perfect level of dysfunctional that really matches Eddie Brock and feels like this is the only series you could tell any kind of a story like this in. Number 63, Something is Killing the Children. I already mentioned that James Tynion is one of the best horror comic writers working today, and he continued to prove that this year with Something is Killing the Children, a series all about something that is killing the children. Okay, it's very vague in the beginning, but it's supposed to be. This is an amazing mystery where you really want to know, alright, what are these monsters? What are they doing? Who is this person who knows how to fight the monsters? What's her backstory? This is a horror comic series where you really want to understand every single beat of it, but not knowing is such a spine-chilling joy. When this book begins and you just see the aftermath of a terrible thing that happened, you're left just feeling speechless. You're just sitting there going, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened, and I'm not entirely sure what just happened, but I really want to know. Number 62 is This How You See Me. This is a book about two friends going to a punk reunion show, and it's basically just a story about what it feels like to be nostalgic, to think back to the past, and to remember all the good times, but then wonder if they were really all that good, but then also wonder if maybe those times are gone forever, and think about where you are right now in your life, and think about how many things have changed, and think about how maybe some connections you used to have are no longer there, or maybe they've changed in a way that you don't want them to change. And I'll admit, I am not the biggest fan of the Love and Rocket series, not because I dislike it, but just because it took me a long time to get into it, so I don't have the connection with these characters that a lot of other people do. But if you are a fan of the Love and Rocket characters, this will have such a bigger impact on you. But again, I can tell you, as somebody who doesn't really have that backstory with these characters, it still was able to affect me. Number 61, Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is one of those titles out there that a lot of people out there have been trying to figure out what to do with. Do they want to be more jokey, like the current movie series incarnation has been? Do they want to be like the ragtag band of rebels that the original Guardians of the Galaxy were? Do they want it to be the big crazy sci-fi ideas that have been sprinkled in here and there, especially in the Abnett and Landing run? Well, this year, Donny Cates came in here and captured every single side of that, but really put a lot of emphasis on the ragtag band of rebels, on the big team of screw-ups, and I kind of love that. I love the absolute motley crew that he created in his run on this book, and just seeing these crazy personalities clash with each other was a delight with every single issue. But most importantly, even though I say he came in here and he took a lot of elements of the previous Guardians of the Galaxy series, he still put his own flavor on this book. He still came in here and he said, yeah, this is why I wanted to write these characters. And it felt like everything I enjoy about Donny Cates' writing. Number 60, Green Lantern. When Grant Morrison came in here and said that he was going to be the new regular writer on Green Lantern, not like a special guest star who was here for only one issue or one storyline. No, he had a big story mapped out with these characters. I did not know what to expect, because you never know what to expect with a Grant Morrison book. Especially a Grant Morrison Green Lantern book, which feels like it just lends itself to having every crazy idea he could possibly come up with happening on the page. But the last thing I expected was a police procedural. This feels like the most cop story Green Lantern story we've ever gotten. But at the same time, Grant Morrison is not afraid to come in here and remind everyone why he's Grant Morrison, why he's known for big crazy ideas, and the fact he's able to take his crazy ideas and mix it with such a realistic cop story. It just blows my mind. I can't believe he's able to balance those two in this book. Number 59, Basketfull of Heads. Although, I will admit, this one is a little bit of a cheat because it's not just Basketfull of Heads. This is kind of the stand-in for all of the Hill House books. Yes, this year, DC Comics announced that they were going to be giving Joe Hill, famous writer of one of my favorite horror series. Actually, you know what? You all know me. It's not just my favorite horror series, it's my favorite series of all time, Locke and Key. They were going to give Joe Hill just free reign. So he came in here and wrote a wide variety of horror books, and I've been digging pretty much every single one of them. But especially Basketfull of Heads, the series that launched it, it's one of those series that, as I mentioned with Something Is Killing the Children, you don't know what's going on. The book starts with someone walking down the street with a basket full of talking heads. Then you just go into the past before whatever that was happened, and you spend the entire book just going, okay, seriously, what was that and how do we get to it? But instead, you just treat it to a bunch of delightful characters. Characters you really come to enjoy, and you really hope nothing bad is going to happen to. And I think that's exactly what a horror book should do. Number 58, White Trees. The only reason this book isn't any higher is because it was a 2-issue long series. But in those 2 issues, writer Chip Zdarsky and artist Chris Anka were able to come in here and paint a gorgeous world, an imaginative landscape full of rich, interesting characters, and the story of 2 former warriors who used to fight side by side, but then they split apart. Something happened and they don't feel comfortable around each other anymore. And one day, their children run off with each other. So now they have to team back up to go and find them. And it's the story of them slowly coming to understand they don't really know their children as much as they thought. But it's also the story of how damaged they are from the things they've seen in their past. This was a book that combined giant, open, gorgeous landscapes with deep emotional character beats that made it really work on almost every level. Although, I will warn everyone, this is a very adult-themed book. I'm just going to throw that out there because I know a lot of people look forward to the top 100 list every single year so they can get some comic book recommendations. I'm just going to warn you now, do not read this if you are under 18. Oh, who am I kidding? That's just going to make you guys want to read it more. Number 57, Wasted Space. This book was on our best books of the year list last year, but I don't think it was until this year that it really hit me what was so special about this book. This book is all about a disgraced holy man, a teenage runaway, and a sex robot all going out into space to find God. Okay, premise alone is something unique. You have to give this book that. But as the book went on this year, I started to get attached to these characters so much more than I did last year. And I started to understand what really made this book special. With almost every single issue, the characters will stop to basically just debate philosophy with each other. And as the series went on, I began to realize, oh, this is the good place in space. That's what it is. If you enjoy the philosophical side of the good place, I would absolutely recommend Wasted Space. But even if you aren't into that side of it, and you just want to see a crazy ragtag band of characters blowing stuff up and making situations constantly worse for themselves and getting into one hairy situation after another, yeah, Wasted Space. Number 56, Crowded. This is gonna be a tough one to talk about because I feel like everything I could say about this book I said last year. And this year, the book remained on point. The book remained fantastic and continued doing all the things that I love. This is a series that is all about a world where there is an app that allows people to basically put out bounties on other people. And this one girl has suddenly received the largest bounty anyone has ever selected. So now the entire world is trying to hunt her down except for her bodyguard, and this is one of the best oddball duos I've ever seen in a series. And I thought moving into year 2, their antics might start to get old. I mean, it is a comedy series after all, and you can always see the same type of joke over and over again until it starts to get stale. Nope, didn't get stale. Still absolutely loving this book. Still really enjoy all these crazy characters. Still think the artwork is phenomenal. Still think this has one of the best cast of any book that Image is putting out right now. Number 55, Giant Days. This is yet another book that has been on our best books of the year list every single year. This was on our best books of the year list before we even started doing the best books of the year list on YouTube, back when we were doing it on Tumblr. Yeah, it's been with us for that long. And that's one of the reasons why it gets on this list. Because after all this time, you can't help but develop connections to these characters. And this has been a series loaded with great characters. And it's a story of 3 girls going off to college and becoming friends with each other. But as time goes on, we see them start to drift apart, or one problem start to form between them, or them coming together over a different issue. Yeah, it has been great to watch them grow and develop over every single issue, and that is what has made this series so special. We've watched them grow and develop. This is not one of those big superhero books where the characters remain at the exact same age for 2 decades in a row. No, in Giant Days, they started off as freshmen, and now, as time has gone on, this was the year they graduated. This was the finale to one of my favorite series over the last decade. And yeah, as I was reading it, I couldn't help but kind of get emotional at the fact that, wow, I have stuck with these characters in a way that I have not stuck with characters in a long time. And that's important. So again, one last time, we salute you, Giant Days. Number 54, Black Cat. And the winner of book I was not expecting to love, but ended up falling head over heels for, Black Cat. I had zero interest in checking out this book, but I started hearing pretty good reviews of it, so I decided, what the heck, I'll give it a try. This is Lupin III. It's 100% Lupin III in the Marvel Universe. It is the lighthearted, crazy, fast-paced, action-heavy thief comic you've always wanted. The Black Cat and all the other characters in here are written so well. I love seeing these characters bounce off of each other. They're each so unique, and they're loaded with deep dives into the Marvel Universe. Listen, I'm a big Marvel fanboy. You guys all know that. I constantly had to stop in this book to go on Wikipedia and go, okay, who is this character now? And yeah, every single time that I did that, I found out they were actual characters from long ago in Marvel's past. And I love that this writer is actually doing this. This writer is actually doing the deep dives in here, not because he just wanted to come in here with some obscure little picks, but because they actually felt important to the plot. But even if these were all brand new characters, even if you don't care at all about long-standing characters sticking around in a book, this book is so much fun. This is a book where in the second issue, Black Cat has to rob Doctor Strange. So they get this crazy old magician to help them break into his headquarters. That is the level of fun that this book is all about, and I am having a blast with it, and it makes me really upset that I have not actually stopped to talk about all the things I enjoy in this book until this moment. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the comic book community, not hyping this book up more. Number 53, Sea of Stars. You guys know I am a massive Jason Aaron fan. You know that I have been a supporter of a lot of his indie books for the longest time. Goddamn Southern Bastards, those books have been fantastic. And this year, he came in here with a brand new series, Sea of Stars, which is a book that feels nothing like anything he's ever done before, but at the same time, still contains so many of the things that I love about his writing. Sea of Stars, it's not some down-to-earth, grizzled, disturbing, edgy series. No, it is a story about a boy out in space who gets lost from his father, but as time goes on, he starts to learn that there's more to him than he thought, and him trying to reconnect with his father. And that's the stuff that Jason Aaron does incredibly well. He has always had great stories about father-son relationships. But this is not like any father-son relationship he's ever written before. And the setting is unlike anything he's ever done before. And yet, he still does a wonderful job on it. This reminded me of so many other series that have come out from Image over the past couple of years. Series like Descender, series like Saga, series that have become some of the biggest series out there in the indie market. And it feels like I am picking up one of those series as it is beginning all over again. Number 52, Killmonger. After the success of the Black Panther movie, Marvel wanted to come in here and re-energize Black Panther's villain Killmonger, so they gave him his own miniseries, and this miniseries is rough. I don't mean that as in the quality of the book. No, the quality of the book is great. I mean the way it makes you feel. This is a book in which they are going to dive into some of the deepest, darkest corners of the Marvel Universe. You're going to see a lot of stuff that will make you go, yep, that is exactly in the tone of Killmonger, and it will absolutely capture the anger that this character feels. You read this book and you think to yourself, yes, this character is a villain, but he is a villain who has got a story to tell. He is a villain who has got motivations, and exploring all that and exploring how he got to be the character that we all know is so fascinating, and you really want to continue to read every single page of this book. You want to see where his journey is going to end up taking him. The only reason this isn't any higher is because only 3 issues of it came out this year, and I do have that stupid rule about comparing every issue of a book to every other issue that came out in the year. But if the entire series came out this year, it definitely would have cracked our top 50. And at number 51, the last book we're going to talk about today, Ascender. When Jeff Lemire came in here and concluded his amazing Descender series, we had no idea what was coming next. This was a book that was all about a future where androids did everything for us, and we were all living in super high-tech futuristic cities. And at the end of that book, they came in here, and these giant robots wiped out everything. All the advanced technology that we had, all the robots, it was all gone. We were placed back at square one as a civilization. However, at the end of that book, they introduced that magic also exists in this world. And at first, I remember looking at that going, why on earth are you introducing magic right now? That's a weird thing to just suddenly introduce. That's just kind of coming out of nowhere. It's because he was setting that up for Ascender. Yes, all technology is now gone. So now magic has a chance to sprout back up. And this is the story of what happened to the characters we had been following in that previous series after they have spent 10 years living without all that technology in a world where magic is now starting to thrive. This is one of the boldest decisions I've ever seen a writer make on a book in my entire history of reading comics. This is a writer who came in here, took the entire premise of the previous series, threw it out, and now create a brand new series in the exact opposite direction of the previous series that is still a continuation of that previous series. I feel like just for the boldness of that choice alone, it deserves to be in the top 100, but it's still Jeff Lemire. It's still one of the most talented writers out there. And if anybody out there can sell you on an amazing idea like this, yeah, it's him. He's able to do it. When this book started up, I'll admit, it took me a while to get back into it. It took me a while to be convinced, oh yeah, this is absolutely where we should be going. But as the characters started to come together again, and as the story started to pick up, it reminded me of what I loved about Descender. And it made me so excited to see where this brand new adventure was going to go. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Numbers 100 through 51. The biggest chunk of our top 100 countdown has come to a conclusion, so make sure that you come back tomorrow for part 2 when we count down number 50 through 26. And if you want to reach out and contact us, you can always find us around the web on Twitter and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. And if you want to see part 2 of this, make sure that you click subscribe and make sure that you ring that bell, because if you don't, YouTube doesn't know how to do YouTube stuff and it forgets how to tell you that new videos have gone up. Yeah, that's apparently a thing. But anyway, again, thank you very much to everybody out there who supports these videos. Thank you to everybody who tells me every single year how much you look forward to these videos. And especially thank you to the patrons. It's because of you guys that we were able to continue doing this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and come back tomorrow for part 2.